Here we go. There we go. Can you hear me now? My God, I'm horrible at this. Can you guys hear me now? Tell me in the chat if you can hear me. You should be able to hear me. And you know what's funny is I'm sitting here giving a monologue about how I know for a fact my audio is finally fixed. Is it good? Can you hear me now? Tell me if you can't hear me. Uh-oh. You guys can hear me now. Okay. Oh boy. Oh boy. So yeah, I was actually sitting here telling you guys that I think I got all my audio issues figured out. And that you guys weren't going to have to worry about them this week. And in fact, I got some audio clips or video clips with audio to play today. And if they do work, I am hoping you guys will stand up and cheer for me and Nick Ashley, who actually helped do all of the audio stuff and who's been really helping me fix. I want you guys to know that in the chat logs here, in your guys' chat, it is way delayed. So I was sitting here asking you if you could hear me for, I don't know, a good 20 seconds before I realized that you guys could hear me now. So I spent some time in the hospital today. That's why the stream's a little delayed, and I apologize. And I'm also on Valium, so it's going to be a fun evening. I have this whole cool show to talk about, and I'm probably going to do a lot of ums and uhs and uhs and look really funny, but hey, whatever, who cares? But anyways, welcome to episode 3 of Break the Cycle with your host, Joshua Smith. I wanted to talk about the drug war a little bit today, but I really wanted to talk about Ross Ulbricht. You know, he's been behind bars for a long time for some bullshit. I mean, it's honestly, it really is bullshit. Are there any photos of the mad one? See, I can't be looking at your guys' chat. You guys are going to totally throw me off here. Here, I'm gonna hide you guys. No, I'm still gonna look, but I'm gonna kind of look and kind of hide. Yeah, no, I didn't. I did forget. I forgot to unmute the microphone in the mixer as opposed to just unmute, which I also do. Unfortunately, but anyways, I want to talk about Ross Ulbricht today. And as libertarians, we know that the drug war is a complete failure. I mean, it's cost us trillions and trillions of dollars. The drugs are winning. The drug use is higher than ever before. People are falling out left and right from untested drugs, terrible drugs, there's all kinds of issues with the drug war. But the government, they don't give a shit. They want to keep taking your money. But so pretty much anyone watching this show knows that the drug war is a giant failure. But it's so intertwined within the very fabric of our society that after decades, many don't understand the implications or the mass increase of violence that it's caused. I mean, in the marketplace, not only has it failed, it's actually increased violence in the marketplace. It's creating more of what it declares it's trying to decrease. So it's no surprise when that same government tries to make examples of those who are trying to circumvent this bloody drug war and show that they've actually failed. That their tactics are wrong. Of course, the state doesn't want to admit that it took trillions of dollars from you over decades and decades for a failed experiment that has literally had the opposite effect of its intended nature. So what's more important to them is making sure that no one ever tries to circumvent the authority and make it clear that they have failed. And that's what brings us to Ross Ulbricht and Silk Road. So Silk Road, I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this probably know. Hopefully we'll be able to share this podcast out a little bit more than we have been and let other people know about Ross. But Silk Road was an e-commerce site, and if you guys know anything about the deep web, I'm not super knowledgeable about the deep web and what goes on there. And I know that there's some bad things that go on there, but I also know that a lot of people like their anonymity. I mean, I'm a crypto guy. I want to be anonymous. I want to be able to make transactions anonymously. So Silk Road was an e-commerce site that was basically just that. It was built and intended for anonymity and letting people purchase things that they want and kind of have free trade outside of, the government's edicts and what they expect from us. And, this site was created, Silk Road. It wasn't the only site like that. I mean, there was other sites like that were popping up, after Silk Road. But Ross Ulbricht was, he's largely, deemed the founder and creator of Silk Road. But if you really get into the story, and actually I spent this morning watching I watched Deep Web, which is actually it was made in 2015. It's a documentary about Ross Ulbricht and the Silk Road, and it's created by Alex Winter, who is Bill or Ted from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and it's actually narrated by Keanu Reeves, which I thought was kind of cool. These guys are all interested in the Silk Road and the Deep Web, and I was watching some TED Talks with Alex Winter. The guy's really knowledgeable. It's pretty cool to see some actors kind of take the side of the free market and these ideals and stuff. But so Ross was a college student. I mean, by all means, a really good kid. His family's pretty wealthy. They owned properties and rented out properties in Costa Rica, like on the coast of Costa Rica. He wasn't like a criminal. I don't even think he was a big drug addict. I mean, maybe the guy used, smoked pot or something. I haven't heard anything about his own drug use or anything, but he was very voluntarist minded. I mean, he had come to this conclusion that, harm reduction in the market, even if it became something illegal like drugs, was important. And so, he started Silk Road, allegedly started Silk Road. But if you really get into it, he wasn't a computer programmer. He didn't have some, degree in programming computers. He wanted to become an entrepreneur. In fact, he was really good at math and was I think he went to college for engineering of some sort, but decided he moved back home with his parents and decided he wanted to be an entrepreneur, and started actually like a book exchange online, and was donating proceeds from his book exchange to I don't remember exactly which charity it was, but he was doing really good things. I mean, and then somehow got involved with Silk Road, whether he was the creator or not. He definitely had to have help with coding because he wasn't a coder. And they started this community. I mean, it was more than just selling drugs, but that the media would obviously have you believe that it was all about the drugs. It was all about trading drugs and child pornography and all this stuff that, we know takes place on the deep web, but the deep web is so much bigger than that. If you really start getting into and studying the deep web online, which I have done a lot of now, it's so much more than that. It's journalists that want to be anonymous. It's, obviously crypto exchanges, people buying things. Yeah, sure. There's some drug trade going on there, but it's like in the drug trade there, the harm reduction is so amazingly noticeable because we're not buying weed or pure MDMA or clean cocaine or whatever the hell it is they're buying in some back alleyway somewhere where you can get robbed and mugged and shot and killed. I mean, it drops the violence to almost zero. And we know that the drug war is increasing the violence. A lot of the times the actual violence is committed by the fucking alphabet agencies, right? Or the police. And so, Ross wanted to create this community, and and if you really read about it, it was way more than just a drug trade for him, especially. And they prohibited anything that harmed anybody. I mean, it stated right on the site, there wasn't allowed to be any child pornography in Silk Road. They weren't allowed to actually do any kind of murder for hire plots, which we'll get into a little bit more here, because that's like a central tenet to them railroading Ross eventually. So there wasn't allowed to be anything on Silk Road that could bring harm to somebody else, which is very, very important thing to think about, because Ross Ulbricht is serving the rest of his life in a federal prison for creating an e-commerce website where the government couldn't put their hands in it and manipulate the market, right? It's not just about drugs, and we'll find out more about that. So that's what Ross really wanted to do. He wanted to create a community for voluntarists like me, like you, like all of us. Somewhere we could be anonymous, and use our Tor. I know some of you guys probably have Tor, which was created by the government, by the way, in case you're wondering. So this technology that you use to be anonymous was actually something that the government created, and now they'll probably prosecute you if they find out you're using it for certain things that they don't like. But so the investigation into Ross Ulbricht is all kinds of fucked up and shady. Like, legitimately, it is so fucked up. The way that they actually found Ross, it's pretty obvious that there was some at least Fourth Amendment violations, right? They had to hack the servers, essentially. They had to hack in and find this, and so there was definitely probably definitely some NSA involvement. In fact, I have an Edward Snowden clip here talking about Ross. Let's hope it works. Everybody pray for me. Pray for me. And if it does, and you're not standing up and cheering for me, I'm going to be really upset. I'm going to know. I could see all of you right now.
In the case of Ross Ulbricht, who was prosecuted for founding the Silk Road website and is now effectively, he's appealing it, but a life sentence, do you assume, or should we assume, that the NSA was involved in corroborating or gathering evidence which they might have denied in the actual trial?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. That was easy enough. Two questions.
I mean, just to elaborate on that, I apologize, because I don't mean to be pat there.
Yep.
But the NSA in the United States is a member of a larger group called the Five Eyes Network, right? This is the United States, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And these 5 countries, they sort of mix everything together in a common pot, and they share and share alike. They're not allowed to ask a partner to violate their laws, but partners can share information that would have been in violation of their laws if they didn't ask for it. Now, not to say that particular strategy applied in this context, but the difference between the National Security Agency's authorities, and particularly the British equivalent of the NSA called the GCHQ, their authorities, is the UK is allowed to use NSA systems, right, that we built that work in the United States and everything else, against or under the mandate of what's called a serious crimes authority that's completely unrelated to national intelligence prerogatives. And this includes drug trafficking. They are literally mandated for this. They use our systems for this. And then the fruits of their investigations, they can share freely with us. So I would say yes, of course. And it was foolish in the court case. I understand why they did it. He didn't want to own the server at the time. He didn't want to say, yes, this is mine. Therefore, the judge wouldn't allow him to make sort of Fourth Amendment argument here that investigatory restrictions had been violated. But it seems unthinkable to me that there was not an intelligence angle internationally that was involved in that case.
Okay. It worked. Oh my God. Everybody clap and cheer. Jump around your living rooms. We have audio on my clips. I'm very, very happy. It's much better than the screen sharing, apparently. And everyone go and find Nick Ashley and send that man your money, because he's the one that got us audio for our clip. So anyways, Snowden is what Snowden is basically saying there is that we gave technology to Britain, spying technology. It's legal for them to spy on people. They use that technology, probably even on our citizens or people making transactions with our citizens. And then they share that information with the United States, right? So it's a total backdoor around your Fourth Amendment rights by using a foreign power or a foreign country to spy on you. That just blows my fucking mind. And you know, think what you want about Snowden. He's getting railroaded too, you know, for saying these things, for telling these things in the open, in public. You know, the federal government hates when you do that shit. They really don't fucking like it when you tell on them. They're not happy about it. But we got audio on the clips, so everything's good. Everything's good. So anyway, that's kind of how they found out about Ross, and then they found an email that they traced to a Twitter account, and then they found Ross talking about the start of Silk Road on a Twitter post. And so they started investigating Ross Ulbricht. And in fact, when they finally saw him face to face, what happened was, I don't know obviously I don't know what was happening behind this, but they intercepted a case of fake IDs coming from like Canada or something that were going to Ross's house in San Francisco, or his apartment in San Francisco. So they intercepted that, showed up on Ross's doorstep and said, "Are these yours?" Ross was like, "I've never seen those before in my life." It's, you know, they had his picture on it, obviously, and different names and stuff. And he's like, "I've never seen them before in my life. I don't know where they're from." So, you know, they didn't arrest him on the spot, but then they ended up getting some more information, and they eventually ended up arresting him. And after he was arrested, so here's the thing. So we'll talk some more about the DEA agents that are in the DEA agent and the Secret Service agent who were extremely corrupt and had control of accounts in Silk Road, because any libertarian knows that the Alphabet Boys are always trying to create fake accounts. You know, we see it all the time. Some random gun girl online pops on. We all call her a Fed, and then she disappears because it was some fat federal agent eating a donut talking to us on Twitter, trying to get information about boogs and all this stuff. But anyway, so they found some chat logs. They conveniently found some chat logs on Silk Road that were Dread Pirate Roberts, which was said to be Ross Ulbricht's kind of alter ego on Silk Road, where the Dread Pirate Roberts during this, in the lead up to the trial after his arrest and stuff, where before his arrest, where he was actually trying to plot murder for hire, right, of some of the people who might be witnesses. But because of these chat logs, he was actually denied bail. Like, he wasn't allowed to get bail. This guy, no criminal record, outside of this murder for hire plot, it was drug charges and like non-violent offenses. And so his bail was actually denied, right? And so the charges initially, when he was getting ready to go to trial in federal court, were charges for murder for hire and drug charges, right? So when this trial started, then this really goes to show you how much the federal government can and will shut you the fuck down if they want to. He wasn't allowed to bring up, the fact that there was probably more people controlling the Dread Pirate Roberts account, at least 3, from what we know. They weren't allowed to talk about the Fourth Amendment violations to hack into the server, which happened to be in like Iceland or the Netherlands or something. They weren't allowed to even bring this shit up. So the defense had built this whole case that they were going to go in and spin a story that was not anything like the prosecution's case. And the judge essentially shut the entire defense down. They weren't allowed to talk about almost anything in this case. They weren't allowed to bring their witnesses to court. They made it so that the defense couldn't cross-examine federal agents, overly cross-examine federal agents on the stand. I mean, it was clear if you watch any of the trial stuff, if you read anything about the trial, there's some really good journalists that actually covered this trial too, and a lot of people took interest in it. If you read any of it, it'll make you mad, like seething red fucking mad. Like, how could the federal government get away with this? Of course, as libertarians, we know the federal government's going to do this shit anyways. So, but something that'll make you even more mad is that this murder for hire plot, right? There was like supposedly 3 people that Dread Pirate Roberts was messaging, trying to find crime syndicates and stuff to have these 3 people murdered, but only one of these people were ever actually named. And his name was Danny Green, I think. Let me see here. Curtis Green, okay, who was actually someone that was like selling drugs on Silk Road. But some agents, these corrupt agents that I'm going to talk a little bit more about here, found him, basically bribed him, made him a patsy. They stole all the Bitcoin off of his account, and that was in these accounts for Silk Road. They steal all the Bitcoin. Then they pinned it on Curtis Green. So all these people are mad at Curtis Green, saying they stole their Bitcoin and all this stuff. And then they forced him to take fake death photos so that they could show the Dread Pirate Roberts account that they actually killed this person that they were saying they wanted killed. So let's talk a little bit about the corrupt. There was a corrupt DEA agent and a corrupt Secret Service agent who had actually infiltrated Silk Road, become admins. They had access to admin accounts, and they could take control of any account that they wanted. Even, and this is the zinger, man. This is the shit that is like, okay, they could even take access to the DPR accounts, so the Dread Pirate Roberts accounts. And in fact, after all this was over, they were both sent to prison for their involvement in the Silk Road stuff, for the obvious corruption, the theft of the Bitcoin. I mean, they had stolen, it was something like $2.5 million worth of Bitcoin or something like that. And these are the federal agents from the same agencies that were investigating all this stuff. And it was actually shown eventually that they were doing everything that they could to hinder the investigation. And well, of course they were, because they were corrupt and they wanted Bitcoin. I mean, everybody wants fucking Bitcoin. If you know anything about Bitcoin, you want Bitcoin. And this was, at a time when 2015, what was Bitcoin? Like $2,000, $3,000. It wasn't that much, but I think it was well over 2,500 Bitcoin that they had stolen. And then they tried to pin it on Curtis Green. They used Curtis Green. And so the crazy part about all this is Curtis Green, he was the only person named in the murder for hire plot, right? But he actually says to this day that he's a fervent supporter of release for Ross. He says that there's no way Ross was controlling those DPR accounts. Ross isn't the kind of person that would be trying to have people murdered and blah, 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 blah. And so his chats, likely they had been manipulated. But that wasn't allowed to be brought up at trial either. The corrupt agents weren't allowed to be brought up at trial. I mean, they hamstrung the entire defense. Let's see. The DPR account was logged into while Ross was in jail. I mean, that effectively shows that there was more than one person running this account, and there was a lot of other people from the website that had claimed that there was different people using the DPR account. And Ross, if you watch the documentary or look at any of the interviews or anything, Ross wasn't even allowed to give interviews while he was in jail. He was denied bail. He wasn't allowed to give interviews. His defense was completely hamstrung. He was railroaded. I mean, completely railroaded. And in the end, he received 2 full life sentences plus 40 years. And the minimum sentence, by the way, was 30 years. So they, quadrupled that or more, depending on, Ross was a young guy. He was in his 20s. He wasn't old. So no violent charges. Oh, and before we get to the end of this, the murder for hire charges, all right, were never prosecuted. They called them, what was it they called them? Oh, man. Unchargeable offenses or something like that. So they actually used these murder for hire charges, allegations, all through the proceedings to the trial. And into the trial, they were allowed to talk about it. Jurors were allowed to hear about it, but they weren't prosecuting him for it. I mean, that's some shady shit. So now your defense is not allowed to have any kind of defense. I mean, your entire defense was effectively shut down. They're allowed to basically say that you committed these murder for hire plots, even though they know for a fact there was other people using these Dread Pirate Roberts accounts, and they didn't even prosecute for the murder for hire. So it was literally just used for political theater. I mean, it was used to destroy, and that was it. And then so this was 2014 or 2015. So it's been a long time now. And when Trump was in office, a lot of people lauded Trump as this great hero. He's gonna go after the blue check journalists. He wants truth in media, truth in journalism. But when it came to the end of his run, when it was over, he was little more than a coward when it came to clemency. He had the opportunity to grant clemency to Ross, and he didn't. He purported to be this advocate of free trade. Now, if you watch his trade wars, you probably don't believe it, like I don't believe it. But here's a guy who created an e-commerce website to freely trade without the government taking control of it, without the constant regulation that hamstrings us in the market every single day. And Trump didn't even look at the case. He didn't even look at the case. Hundreds of thousands of people are tagging POTUS. Well, before he got taken off Twitter, but they're writing to him. There's these free Ross petitions. Miss Ulbricht, Lynn Ulbricht, his mother is pushing and got an army behind her of people, myself included, who want to see Ross released. He shouldn't be in prison. They know it was a travesty, and he did nothing. And he didn't do anything about Assange. He talks about he wants truth in journalism and truth in media. He didn't do anything about Assange. And probably one of the most egregious issues was Snowden. All Snowden did was tell the truth. The government was lying to us. The government was illegally spying on citizens, and he had the opportunity to pardon, and he didn't. So, but anyways, the lengths the alphabet agencies and the federal government will go to make sure that you don't question their motives or step outside of their control is never ending. Never. And we see this with not only trade, but people like Snowden who whistleblow their own crimes, or journalists like Assange who are just legally doing their job. It's just more proof that these institutions are not here to protect us, but to enslave us, force their will, and take our hard-earned capital for their own pet projects. Let's see.
Future outlook. What are you going to do over the next 5 years? Like one sentence.
I'm gonna I'm gonna do a few things. So one sentence isn't enough, damn it. But pretty sure I want to start a family in the next 5 years.
Nice. Okay.
Just make more friends and close people I love. Yeah, I want to focus on being more connected to people.
Very good. And 20 years.
20 years. I want to have had a substantial positive impact on the future of humanity by that time.
Do you think you're going to live forever?
I think it's a possibility. I honestly do. I think I might live forever in some form by that time. I mean, technology is changing so fast.
Yeah.
Man, that clip gets me every time. That's from an interview with Ross and his best friend. I think they were going to start a podcast or something. That's from like 2012 or 2013. So, back before all of us had podcasts. But that one, man, it gives me the chills every time. So, but speaking of school to prison pipelines, it's been 1 year, almost to the day, since the school shutdowns. And as someone living with 4 school-age children, it's taken its fucking toll, man. Let me tell you. Now, of course, I'm not a public school supporter. It's kind of a necessity for a lot of parents. But if we had the opportunity, obviously, if we had school choice, it'd probably be much different for not just us, but millions of other families around the country. But we have 3 school-age children that haven't seen any kind of school in 3 years. I don't know if you don't follow me on Twitter, you probably don't understand the situation that's going through, but I have a 16-year-old daughter who I have not had custody of for a long time, that I got custody of back in October. One of the greatest days of my life. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. But when we went down to pick her up, we had the opportunity. She has 2 small siblings who are 9 and 6 now, who are not mine biologically, but we were given the opportunity to take them. Have custody of them through kinship, guardianship, and then work to try and adopt. And so we got 3 new kids. I got my daughter plus two bonus children, and we had the baby New Year's Eve, Mateo, who's a beautiful, amazing kid, and my girlfriend already had 2 kids, so we have 6 children in the house now. But those 3 kids had not seen the inside of a school in at least 3 years. And this kept their interactions with kids their age to an absolute minimum, and their education also very, very small. Luckily they're very bright kids, especially for what they've been through. And our 9-year-old was able to catch up really fast in the 4th grade, even though he had only done 1 day of 1st grade prior to that. He was able to catch up really fast, and he's excelling. He's one of the best readers in his class. Our 6-year-old, who is in kindergarten, is one of the best at math in her class already. She's able to really start to see numbers and shapes and letters, and understand what letters are what and what sound they make and all this stuff. But when we got them back here in October, unfortunately it was constant online school. And for 2 working parents who can't be home with them all day long, and 3 kids who hadn't seen the inside of a classroom or knew anything about education for 3 years, it was a mess. It was a really, really, really big fight, and we were faced with this constant online school. It may not be that hard for kids that are used to it. It really isn't, but it was rough for these kids, and they needed friends, But anyways, so public schools and teacher unions have done everything they can to attack the mental health of our children through this entire COVID process, over a virus that largely does not affect them. It's study after study after study is coming out showing that not only kids not really passing this virus around, they're just not even getting sick. Like they're not even getting the virus, which is pretty cool. But we shut down our schools. We took away interaction between children. We really we hamstrung learning. We hamstrung their mental development, their mental health. What's going on here? And I got to see firsthand the ill effects of children in our own home, not being able to go play with their friends at school or make new friends or make those connections. And there was a lot of frustration and they were just really upset. And yes, like I said, we use public school. It's the only chance we have to give these kids an education currently. Unfortunately, we would like to homeschool. That would be probably the best thing for us. And if we could do it, we would be doing it. But it goes a lot further than this. And I just wanted to really kind of go over some stats here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this subject. I just think that it's a good thing to talk about because it has been a year. I mean, it's been a year, and some school districts, some states are still shut down. Some of these kids, and there's 12-year-olds committing suicide, like regularly. This isn't like a this one 12-year-old committed. It's like a regular thing now that children are committing suicide. Regardless of how you feel about public schools, these kids need their friends. They need human interaction. When you're growing as a child and you're having mental development, and you have to have those interactions. And we're teaching them that we can't see each other's faces. We can't go hang out with people. We can't go play with people. We can't compete in sports. I was lucky enough to get my son in wrestling. He got to compete in wrestling, but it was like the parents couldn't come watch. He couldn't show me what he was doing. He wasn't, kids are proud of that stuff. They want their parents to see them and be happy and stuff. But anyways, let's talk about some of the ill effects of this, and we'll wrap this podcast up shortly. But so interrupted learning, obviously this affects the nation's underprivileged much more due to the fact that something like 6% of the people in this country don't have internet. They have no broadband access to the internet, right? So like, how are these kids supposed to learn on the internet at home if they don't have internet? And it's even worse in the rural areas, right? It's like a quarter of the people in the rural areas. So like almost 25%, over 15 million people in rural areas have no internet. How are these kids supposed? I want to clarify this. I'm not Joe Biden, and I'm not just talking about black kids and Mexican kids. Okay, I know that black kids and Mexican kids can use the internet just fine. I'm not gonna make any more jokes about that. But it's it's a true thing. It's a real thing that people in rural areas have less internet than people in bigger city big cities and inner city areas. They have more internet access. It's just how it is. How do they learn? What if your parents have to work? It's really hard to teach your kids how to do their math homework or during their class when you're not there, when you have to work. Like I work 12-hour shifts when my girlfriend was working. Now, luckily she has the opportunity to stay home now. But when she was working and I was working, who stays home and helps the kids, especially kids like ours who haven't been to school in 3 years? A lot of children rely on free lunches, and I know public schools are horrible. I'll keep saying it over and over again. Our kids are in public school because it's the only opportunity we have right now to give them an education. That will change eventually, but they rely on school lunches. We have 6 kids. It saves us a ton of money, and I pay taxes for that. So, but the nutrition of children is being affected. And probably most importantly, what we have to talk about is child abuse. Of course, with the children not getting what may be their only source of time away from the house, that has a lot of consequences in an abusive home, right? Now, this kid used to get to leave the house for 8 hours. He had the opportunity to interact with his friends. He's got an abusive dad or abusive mom or abusive brother or whatever. He doesn't have that opportunity anymore. There's more abuse going on in home. And in fact, that's probably what's kind of led to more suicides, But meanwhile, we have the teachers union and lazy teachers who are fighting tooth and nail to keep kids from returning to the classroom so they can sit at home in their PJs on a Skype call for 2 or 3 hours a day while still collecting that taxpayer-funded paycheck. It doesn't matter what terrible effects it's having on our children because they don't give a shit. They're lazy. Maybe they're underpaid. I don't know. I feel like teachers make pretty good money. I know teachers that make more money than I do, and I make enough money to support 6 kids. So I don't get it. But anyways, don't take my word for it. Let's see what a literal jar of mustard has to say about this entire thing. Let's see. Can we pull the jar of mustard up? Jar of mustard, you there?
Mm-hmm. I'm here, Josh.
Oh, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. Glad you're feeling good.
Yeah, much better now. I still got my wristband on there.
Awesome, man. Just in case you got to check back in.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, man. So I got to tell you, I like what you had to say so far. I like to go to the start. Later this week, actually, one of the reasons I'm happy to be on today, but later this week is the 1-year anniversary of some of the earliest COVID shutdowns in the U.S. It feels like a decade ago, but it was 1 year ago tomorrow that a big croissant-sucking Frenchman named Rudy Gobert, may Allah curse him, who was licking media microphones and coughing in his NBA teammates' mouths, so the NBA shut down its season. Other sports leagues, corporate entities, state and local governments all followed suit. You all know the story. Over the next several months, the nation would witness one of the largest power grabs and wealth transfers in American history, with every public and corporate entity using the old Wuhan Weezer to push through all the shady shit they always wanted. But they had never had the emergency to exploit it. And as an aside here, I got to say, I'm still hearing people talk about the coronavirus shutting things down. Dudes, especially people that you know, it's been way too long for us to still be using that language. Coronavirus didn't shut anything down. Coronavirus didn't even shut down the respiratory system of the thickest, least healthiest, most dump truck ass president we've ever seen in generations, okay? The state shut shit down. Corporations cheered them on, okay? We got to get rid of that phrase that coronavirus shut stuff down, okay? Anyways, that's an aside. Businesses all over America shut stuff down against the wishes of their owners. They threw people out of employment. They threw people into massive debt. One group of public workers was actually lobbying hard to shut down their own place of work while still getting full pay and benefits. That's public teachers unions. And I got to tell you, they gave police unions a run for their money in 2020. For every pig's knee on the neck or a tear gas canister shot point blank into some protester's dick hole in 2020, teacher unions were there to one-up them by crushing students' dreams and opportunities at every turn. Like cops, teachers actually stood down when they might have actually been of use in 2020, but unlike cops who are actually back to their old ways of killing people's dogs, raping rape victims they're supposed to be helping, and battering their wives, which is their national pastime, a lot of teachers still have not gotten back to work. And they continue to fight for their right to either not work or do abridged work online and still get paid. And I say abridged work online because whatever they put together online, even though they had 3 months of a summer to prepare for it, is incredibly abridged. Okay? Let me class up this podcast a little bit, okay? Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Maryland Middle School.
Maryland Middle School. Who?
Maryland Middle School teacher's aide will not face charges after being seen masturbating during Zoom lesson. Straight from the headlines, baby. Straight from the headlines. We continue to hear this excuse that kids can't go back to school because it's too dangerous for them and for teachers and their family, but they can't keep telling that lie. Imagine being a bougie white Prague 4th grade teacher and screaming that if you have to go back to work, you might get COVID and spread it to your grandparents. Bitch, we know your grandparents already died when they saw your OnlyFans, and you already disowned the rest of your older relatives because you caught them enjoying Blazing Saddles. Even the corporate press has pushed back on the narrative that schools need to stay closed. CNN's own flaccid pudding pop, Jake Tapper, interviewed the director of the CDC, which is an organization with every incentive to make people afraid of COVID. She was hesitant to say that schools should be open immediately, and Tapper, for his credit, actually pushed back. When CNN anchors are questioning the narrative of teachers' unions, progressives, most loyal servants, you know there's something going on. So they don't want kids coming back to public schools. They also don't want kids and families to be able to choose other opportunities, with several states actually banning charter schools and online schools from enrolling new students immediately before people were even giving aid to people for the coronavirus lockdowns. Okay, again, we're using the word lockdown. We're not using that word quarantine, okay? In the meantime, like you said, children are killing themselves. They're losing the ability to see their peers. They can't participate in sports, other enrichment, and extracurricular activities, and there's simply not a peep about it from those unions. When public sector unions negotiate, and make no mistake, they negotiate against a public that doesn't have a say in the matter, they always claim they're doing it for the children, but we know it's for the money. Public school is the purest, most perfected example of Chomsky's idea of manufactured consent. The money gets taken from the people no matter what and gets spent as little as possible and as superficially as possible to at least convince 50% of the taxpayers to be okay with it. Like the saying goes, give me my fucking money, Joe Biden, except Joe Biden is taxpayers who keep being content with having their money stolen year in and year out so that local kids can get whipped and molested at school. And what I'm saying is that we need to end the getting beaten by school resource officers to getting beaten by correctional facility officers pipeline. Josh, I got one for you here. Knock, knock.
Who's there, Jar of Mustard?
Arkansas teacher.
Arkansas teacher who?
Arkansas teacher placed on leave after allegedly making 5-year-old use hands to clean feces out of the toilet.
Oh.
Now, I got to say, I read both those articles a straight way through, so I didn't just read the headline for those wonderful knock-knock jokes. In the first one, the dude who was jerking off actually had the gall to do an interview on video with the press where he admitted that, yes, he did jerk off on camera while with students, but it was fine because he didn't know he was still on camera with the kids. And for some reason, the camera guy of that news organization did not beat him to death with his shoe right then and there. The absolute state of cameramen these days. Now, Josh, I get the obvious question is this. If the schools are so bad, if these unions create and allow for such a shitty environment, why would you want the schools to be open? I think one of the obvious answers is that kids are still required to be in them. They're still required to pass classes and do homework and get credits. And they're still being crushed by the pressure to do well on things like standardized tests. There's still petty small-town Kamala Harris types out there who want to punish kids and parents for leaving these schools or finding alternatives. Furthermore, and it's sad, but you said this, some kids need public school. Their lives have been so monopolized by school and the support system it provides that they can't survive without it, or even worse than that, parents have voluntarily ceded their own parenting responsibilities to the state. Cradle to grave with a 14-year stint at what we know Michael Malice will call literal prisons for children, and the only place where many people experience violence from their peers for their entire lives. So to wrap it up, my message to parents, if you got to send your kids to public school, stay on top of what they're learning, what's being told to them, particularly the young ones. People say you're a helicopter parent. That's a bullshit term. Most of all, you need to find solutions. You need to get closer to your communities and make connections there. Look into the work people are doing to, I think this is something you hear more, fund students instead of schools. Better yet, take your kids out of school and homeschool them if you can. I know that's difficult sometimes and sacrifices need to be made, but you need to make your kids' education in childhood years a bigger priority than what it is now. You can't keep on demanding that the state raise your kids. I think it was Vodi Bacham that said, if you send your kids to Caesar for their education, don't be surprised when they come back as Romans. Only now in 2021, Caesar's going to cut off your son's dick and make him hate you for not doing it sooner. Okay? To kids, I know that's just dozens of kids watching this. Probably half of your kids watch this. That's in the hundreds. Disobey if you can. Realize that whatever industrial, neoliberal box your school wants to cram you into, there's way more to life than school. And there's 500,000 better ways to learn than sitting in front of a Zoom watching your teacher fumble through pre-approved opinions. And to teachers, the hundreds of teachers watching this, public school teachers watching this podcast, keep your fucking hands off the kids for one. And if you aren't, or you're afraid to start red pilling kids, it's time to find a different job because you're wasting time and money. If you aren't starting a chapter by chapter read through of Anatomy of the State, what the fuck are you doing?
Yes.
All right. So lastly, to the ATF, get fucked, you pigs. And to the people still eating ketchup, get fucked.
Hey, man. Hey.
And to Josh, thanks for having me on, buddy.
That last one was rough, buddy. I love ketchup.
Yeah.
Ketchup and mustard go hand in hand, buddy.
Yeah, well, you'll come around. Hey, I hope you recover quickly from that AIDS flare-up you had today, and great show so far, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. We'll definitely have you on again, Jar of Mustard.
Sounds great. Take care.
Hey, take care, brother. Wow. That was amazing. That was a good one. Does that one up El Popo? I don't know. It was good, though. It was good. I do appreciate the comedians that come on my show and give you guys a much funnier monologue than I ever could. But anyways, that's going to be the show for today. Thank you guys so much for checking out episode 3 of Break the Cycle. Please smash that subscribe button on YouTube. I'm trying to grift that ad revenue so that we can feed our children. All 700 of them. Please do it. If you guys like the graphics and this shirt here, check out Top Lobster. He's the man. He makes some really, really good graphics. He does all the really cool cartoon graphics that we have for the channel. Without him, I would probably be almost nothing, or at least really close. Check out Whiskey Grenade, who does my intro and outro, wood chipper and disclaimer. Follow Alex Acid Dropsy on Twitter. He's really amazing as well. I will see you guys back here on Friday at 7:30 p.m. where I will have Mr. Black Pill Doctor himself, Pete Quinones from the Libertarian Institute, Free Man Beyond the Wall. It is going to be an awesome night. I'm sure he is one of my favorite people. I cannot wait to have him on the show. And to all of you who have stuck around through my audio issues and my video issues and all my craziness, I love you guys so much, and I'll see you Friday. Have a good night.
Due to legal reasons, I just have to explain. The lyrics of my last song may seem to contain a violent call to action in the verse and refrain, but I just meant it in Minecraft. The helicopter part was in reference to GTA 5 and the things you do. So any violence you commit, I am not an excuse, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Wood chipper is my friend and he's constantly cold. Accusations of incitement getting totally old. Make your own choices, yeah, you have control, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Obviously I would never advocate force, unless there's due process and a trial, of course. And if you're convicted, we will make you a corpse in Minecraft, just in Minecraft. You're nothing I mean, you know it. We're trying to get us cause you're close to COVID. Holy shit, I think I'm a poet. In Minecraft, in Minecraft.